Мелания Трамп, муж, наконец, победил, готовится во второй раз стать хозяйкой Белого дома. А вот так Мелания выглядела в 2000 году. Смотрите, обложка глянцевого журнала GQ. Будущая первая леди в неглиже лежит на шкуре. В самом журнале сексуальные фото Мелании у частного самолета и на его борту. На одном из снимков модель в бордовом белье лежит на синем ковре с изображением большой печати США, государственной эмблемы Америки. Как будто в редакции мужского журнала что-то знали заранее о будущем своей модели.
Columnist Julia Davis noticed Russia's most watched state TV channel seemed to backhandedly disrespect Trump's upcoming return to the White House by featuring the nude modeling pictures of former First Lady Melania Trump. Well, considering his track record of his commitment to letting Putin know that he's all for him doing whatever he wants, they don't expect Trump to react.
The New York Times reported that in his first year in office, Donald Trump, in his first meeting in Hamburg, Germany, with Vladimir Putin, having been briefed by his then Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, on how tough to be with Putin in that meeting, that in that meeting, a year before the sort of notorious meeting, the summit that they had in Helsinki, he asked Vladimir Putin, reportedly, according to the New York Times, should I be arming Ukraine? And Putin said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And Tillerson came out and in real time told the other advisors standing there, we have a real problem.
It's not like we didn't know that Trump's position that seems to lean in favor of Vladimir Putin was an issue for many voters. But now that Putin has the former president back, another big question is if Trump will follow through on his signals that he'll support his actions in Ukraine.
What keeps you going? Do you ever feel defeated?
I have a lot of power, but even feeling strong and have a lot of energy, it doesn't mean that we want to fight all our life, because the price is high, like I said, because the war takes the best of us, the best heroes, the best men, women, children. That's it. But we are not ready to give our freedom to this terrorist Putin. That's it. That's why we are fighting.
After Putin invaded, Trump openly marveled in the genius plan that Putin hatched, but hasn't been as accepting of Zelensky's response to it.
Look at the war in Ukraine, and I think it's something we have to have a quick discussion about, because the president of Ukraine is in our country, and he's making little nasty aspersions toward your favorite president, me. But take a look at the war happening right now in Ukraine. It would have never happened if I were president, to start off with. And there didn't even have to be a settlement. It wouldn't have happened, period. Russia wouldn't have gone in. I spoke to Putin about it a lot. I got along very well with Putin. But what's happening in Ukraine is a very serious matter. Let's say we did settle, and a deal would have been made with Russia years ago, 3 years ago, before it all began. And we could have made a deal easily. Could have made it easily. If we had a president who was intelligent, we could have made a deal easily. Any deal, even the worst deal, would have been better than what we have right now. If they made a bad deal, it would have been much better. They would have given up a little bit. And we continue to give billions of dollars to a man who refuses to make a deal, Zelensky. And Biden and Kamala allowed this to happen by feeding Zelensky money and munitions like no country has ever seen before. Every time he came to our country, he'd walk away with $60 billion. He's probably the greatest salesman on earth.
Again, this has been in our faces for Trump's entire presidential run. So now that there are reports going around of Putin's presidential aide talking about commitments and obligations he now has to fulfill, as well as an outright dismissal of the report that Trump spoke to Putin and warned him to not escalate in Ukraine, or else, it doesn't seem like the buddy-buddy friendship is mutual, but more like control.
Given what you know of Donald Trump and given your concern about Ukraine, what do you think the Trump-Putin relationship looks like over the next 4 years? And what do you think is going to happen in Ukraine?
Look, as it relates to Russia, Ukraine, the U.S., The relationship is quite fraught, and I think that the former and future president is going to quickly realize that his offer to settle this war within 24 hours is probably unlikely, very unlikely, I would say. In fact, there is no interest. I don't suspect there's much interest from Vladimir Putin to settle this war on any terms that would be remotely acceptable to the Ukrainians, to the Europeans, and we'll see whether they're acceptable to the U.S. and the new administration. But it's a zero-sum game for the Russians. Their interests are right now to make sure they win in Ukraine and get as much territory in Ukraine as possible.
So while Trump preached both giving Putin whatever he wants and making a deal that simply gives him Ukrainian territory, there might be a reason Putin is openly high-stepping about Trump's win. So just like every other destructive promise that he made, we're just waiting to see if he stands by his commitments. But this time it seems like it's to Vladimir Putin.
The vicious autocrats of Russia, the police state theocrats of Iran, the totalitarian communist billionaire bureaucrats of China and North Korea, and all their corrupt oligarchs and plutocrats seek to destroy the very idea of human rights and political freedom that are the defining ideals of America and still the hope of a world struggling against their oppression. The tyrants have something else in common. Donald Trump. He loves them all, and they love him back. He loves them because he envies their total control over their societies, and they love him because they know they can manipulate and control him.